You will notice the slide there that is on the screen, Dennis and Dorothy's 1958 Chevrolet. The Lord has, over the years, has given us an opportunity to witness for him, no matter what vehicle we owned. But it was during my teen years that I was always interested in hot rods. As a matter of fact, my first hot rod at the age of 16 years old was the family's car, a 1947 Mercury. My father indicated that he would give this car to me, and I did not hesitate to wait until that day would come. But I decided to make a hot rod out of the family car before it was given to me. Now, that wasn't wise. And the reason why is because my father was the head elder of Pine Forge Seventh-day Adventist Academy in Pine Forge, Pennsylvania. And it appeared that Dad gave me this car really before he was really ready, because my father was very conservative, well and highly respected in the community of Pine Forge. And without going into all of the details, I had already souped up the engine, installed dual exhausts, put on glass-packed mufflers so you can just hear that roaring sound, and I can hear it in my ears right now. Then I ended up putting a rear fender skirts on the back of it, lowered the car 7 inches, spotlights turned down, you've seen them, in the front, and a long antenna on the rear, on the back. And you can just imagine seeing my father and my mother going to church in that vehicle. Well, that was back in the 50s, and a very rare scene to see again a conservative father in a hot rod. But as soon as I was 16, Daddy couldn't do it quick enough. He gave the car to me. Now I'm going to fast forward because there's much to say, and I'm also aware of the time. Most of my academy, college, university, and adult married life, we have always had hot rods. When I married my dear wife, Dorothy, I had a hot rod. Fast, high-powered cars. And over the years, my wife and I got to know each other better, because the faster I would go, the more she would love me. Now, I know you don't believe that one. The faster I would go, the more she would scream. But nevertheless, she enjoyed it. Those of you who are hot rodders out there, as I just went through the gears and smoke coming from the rear wheels and big smile on my face and looking for the challenge as I just would race down the road. And I could tell you much more about that, but I will not. But over the years, we have owned numerous of hot rods, of which the latest was the one that you saw on the screen, a 1958 Del Rey Chevrolet. And it was a miracle as to how we obtained that vehicle. As a matter of fact, we purchased 2 antiques when we bought the 58, a 1962 Pontiac and the 58 Chevrolet. They both were the same color. But that was a way of life for us. Fast cars was a specialty, just as the Sabbath is a specialty. It was on a Sabbath in the month of April, 1956. I was a student, a senior at Pine Forge Academy, and two of my friends, whose names that I will not call, they may be embarrassed. And as you know, as Seventh-day Adventist youth and young people, sometimes we don't do things that we really are supposed to do on the Sabbath. So here I am at Pine Forge Academy, sitting up in Sabbath school, and my two friends, one, well, I'll call their names. Conrad Hazel was a senior, as well as myself at the academy, and Harry Dobbins was a junior. They came up to me and they said, you know, today is a lovely day. And it really was, Pastor, in April. Instead of snow on the ground, the temperature was like 61 to 62 degrees, a beautiful Sabbath day. And they said, let's take a ride. And foolishly, I listened to them on the Sabbath. There are some roads there in Birdsboro, Pennsylvania, that we call roller coaster roads. Those roads were known among those of us who just enjoyed driving fast. And we call them roller coasters because the road would go up and down just like that. And the speed limit on that particular road, 30 miles an hour. But our challenge was to see how fast we could go. And the road was in distance about 1.5 miles. And we would, at the first hump, we would just press on the gas and just go up the hill, and then we would come down as fast as we would go. And as we got the car to rev up to about 55 to 60 miles an hour on a road that is supposed to be only 30 miles an hour, the car would literally leave the road as we would come down on the other side. And my two friends were in the back seat, and they were just enjoying every bit of it. I came up on the hill, and I saw a car about 2 or 3 humps over. And I mentioned to them, I said, well, I don't know who's driving that car. I mentioned it very fast because I was driving fast. I said, I don't know who's in that car. All they have to do is stay on their side of the road, and I will stay on my side of the road, and everything will be all right. And as I was approaching like 65, almost 70 miles an hour, and the car went up over the hump, and I could see the car on the other hump, about 2 or 3 humps down, and I just kept going. And lo and behold, it happened. As I was coming up the hill, the other car was in the middle of the road, and the person had stopped. Immediately, now we didn't have seat belts in those days. Immediately, I turned to the right, and of course, that when I turned to the right, there was an embankment. The car went up the embankment. I slid from the driver's side and over to the passenger side. The car was totally out of control, and I'm on the passenger side trying to get that car to straighten up, and it didn't straighten up, and we just went and went and went. And I'm going to tell you what happened. As we came back across the road, there was a barn. The barn door was open, thank the Lord. Went straight through the barn, out of the back of the barn door. The back of the barn, and behind the barn. Now, we didn't know this as we were going through all this, but the car was just totally out of control. Out of the back of the barn, and lo and behold, there was a pig pen back there. And the car just swirled all the way around, and the pig pen and pig slop and all that stuff was just going all over the place. And then all of a sudden, total silence. Just like now, you don't hear anything. I thought I had killed my friends in the back. I didn't hear anything back there. And then finally, Conrad Hazel, they were on the floor. That's why I didn't see anyone. I didn't hear anything. They were trying to get themselves together. And then all of a sudden, I saw he had dirt and all. Now, this was on the Sabbath, and we all had our suits on. He had dirt and mud all on his suit. How the dirt and all that stuff came in through we must have had a great big spin there, Don. And Harry got out of the car, and he was holding the top of his head. Well, to make a long story, because I'll never get into the body of my message, but thank the Lord, the three of us are still alive today. I won't tell you about how we got back to Pine Forge. The car was totaled. I won't tell you how we hitchhiked on our way back to Pine Forge. I won't tell you that when we got to Pine Forge, there were students who saw us leave. I won't tell you that there were students who saw us walking after, as a result of hitchhiking. I won't tell you that. But interesting things happened after that particular situation. My dear brothers and sisters, advancing forward very quickly, we were called by the General Conference to go to Sierra Leone. Well, actually, it was really to Nigeria. 5 years later, and I'm advancing quickly here, while we were there in Sierra Leone, we noticed in the Sabbath school second quarterly, that the mission story was about myself. And my wife and I, we just could not understand this. When my family and I saw the mission story, our children at that particular time, we noticed that it was a copy of the North American Division Sabbath School Quarterly for the second quarter of 1972. And the title of the mission story was Coming to Learn, Going to Serve, and it was basically about our lives, my wife and my life. We both met each other there at Pine Forge Academy. And it was written by Dr. J.E. Dykes, a professor at Pine Forge Academy at that time. And as mentioned before, my wife and I, we were shocked to know the mission story was about us. I will not read the entire mission story, but just one paragraph. As a teenager, Dennis was a red-blooded young man whose chief interest centered in souping up and driving hot rods, automobiles, in roller skating, and other recreational activities. His parents, Mr. and Mrs. Sylvester Keith, recall that Dennis was somewhat of a speed demon, and his guardian angel must often have worked over half to preserve his life. I have read this and shared this with you because what touched my heart over the years was his guardian angel must often have worked overtime to preserve his life. God spared my life, and I'm sure many of you out there have had automobile accidents. But God spared my life because he did not see me as I was, but he saw me as I would be. My friends would say, and over the years, they would say, if God can spare your life and to be a worker in the Seventh-day Adventist Church, I know God has a plan for me. My hot rod, brothers and sisters, over the years have turned hearts of men and women. And as a matter of fact, at Loma Linda University, one of my colleagues, he was at Loma Linda for many years, was a hot rodder, but became a person who contributed tremendously to Loma Linda University. Another friend right now currently still is president of one of the conferences, was a hot rodder. But over the years, these individuals would come and say how the Lord has blessed me. They never would think that I would become a missionary, but God saw the future. And that is what we are talking about, miracle territory.